Hello and welcome to the Labour Social here on... Oh, hang on. My sound isn't coming through. Oh, yes it is. Phew. Whew. I thought it wasn't. Hello there. Hello and welcome to the Labour Social. I'm joined today by Phil Morehouse. We've already done this today once, haven't we, Phil?
Yeah. Yes.
Basically, everyone's on holiday, so you're stuck with us. There you go. Tough luck. Sorry for everyone who was hoping to see Supertansky or Aid or Danny Price or... Ollie Bowler Hatman, or anyone else who normally joins us on these things. It's just going to be me and Phil. Sorry. Anyway.
I almost never go on holiday.
Well, I did, to be fair, I did manage to do a couple of morning brews while I was away last week and the week before. But it is a bit difficult when you don't have your whole studio set up and your camera and everything. It's all a bit ad hoc. So, just a big shout out to everyone in the chat there. We got Derek, who's hoping for Supertansky. I'm very sorry, Derek. She'll be back next week, I'm sure. Dave says it's terrible over here, weather not much cop either. Yeah, we've got mad storms in the UK at the moment, but there's fires in Canada, there's fires in Tenerife, and we discovered today that there's a hurricane heading towards California, which has never happened before. They don't normally have hurricanes on that side of the country. So, all the Tories' fault. Funnily, it is actually the Tories' fault because, they've managed to make us do nothing about climate change.
Well, the world over, certainly, yeah.
Yeah. Leaves it as like, no Tansky. Oh, no. See our viewership going off a cliff. But she might turn up. We don't know. I've got things set up, so if anyone does want to come along later on, they're very welcome too. But, so have you got a drink?
I have.
Have you?
Oh, yeah. Mate. I have cider. The cider's my Friday night drink every week.
Oh, mate, I don't even have a beer. I'm so unprepared tonight. I feel really bad. But yeah. So should we dive in? What's? I mean, we talked about this at the at 1:00 today at the on the agenda, but I was thinking, let's talk a little bit about the criticism of Labour this week, because we talked a lot about the Tories, but Labour have been getting it into the neck quite a lot about not saying anything.
Yeah,
what the Tories are doing.
Why would they? Oh, well, why would they? Because they've been making enough of a mess of it. Like, if you keep looking at the polls, like the thing is, whenever Labour say a thing, like, so what? Some people will say, well, why don't they call for X minister to resign? Well, what's the point? They'll just say no. And then they just look silly. And what is the value of it? And also, strategically, if a minister is making a political mess of things, I suppose it's different if they're really outraging the public and you sort of feel they need to go anyway. It's almost a little bit like, and it doesn't matter who the party is or who the leader is. If you're calling for someone in an opposition party to you to resign, if there's no reason for them to resign, or there's no reason why the leader has to get rid of them, they just won't. So what's the point in saying it? And if you know that they're going to have to resign, and so you just call for it just before they do it, what are you supposed to go? Oh yeah, that was me. He did it because I said no. So that's just political games. If you're going to say, okay, well, we're not meaning that. We mean like, at least state what your detailed position is. It's like, why? Yeah. Because if you state your detailed position on anything, there'll be some people who go, I agree with that. And there'll be a load of people who go, no, I don't agree with that. So, you give your position when you need to. What Labour need to do is they need to explain outcomes, what the outcomes, because you can get more people supportive of that. The way the Conservatives usually work is they focus on all of every outcome that anyone could possibly want. Oh, businesses are going to have less interference from the state. You can do your own thing, but workers are going to have better pay and better quality jobs. You're going to have it both ways. Whereas, I mean, you could talk about Unite and Momentum going off on one in the last couple of days. So you look at Labour know that they can't say you can have all of this. They know there are trade-offs. So they have to say what that trade-off's going to be. And it almost also doesn't matter what happens. Like Sharon Graham of Unite and Momentum are saying, oh, Labour have watered down their plans on, what are the specific plans they're saying they watered down on? Like keeping people on some sort of trial basis so they can sack them at any time. And Angela Rayner's come out and said, no, we said
But
we were going to stop that and we stopped it.
This is like red on red attacks, isn't it? Sharon Graham?
Sharon Graham. To be fair, I will say to be fair to Sharon Graham, like I think she herself is playing a political game. Because sometimes, like for example, you could go back recently to the vote that was held in Unite to should we like disassociate from the Labour Party, and Sharon Graham urged members to not do that. She urged them to stay affiliated to Labour, and then afterwards said Labour's on this is a warning type thing. I think so. If you remember when Sharon Graham became she
took over from Len McCluskey, didn't she? Who was a horrible
but she stood specifically on a platform of having the union focus on like the members actually doing stuff for the members instead of all these stupid little political games. But Unite is a deeply political union. There's loads of people in it who use it as like a surrogate for a political party themselves. So a lot of the people in influential positions within Unite get voted there because, to be honest, most people in Unite don't bother to vote for reps or anything like that. Like particularly, in the sort of regional or national structure. So it's mostly just people who are politically engaged and usually part of a bit of an echo chamber. So Unite is incredibly political. And I think Sharon Graham, a lot of the time, is just playing that political game. Just like Starmer has to appeal to target voters, she has to do the same within her union. Because when it comes down to it, the way she's running the union seems to me fairly pragmatic. So, but this latest thing, it's just like, they're watering it down. And it's reasonable. They've based it on the idea, they've seen this leaked document, or the Financial Times, first of all, saw this leaked document. They reported it, first of all, saying, these things you were promising, that seems to be missing from this communique from the National Policy Forum, which is fine. If something goes missing, absolutely you need to go, does this mean you're still committed? But Angela Rayner, and it's her brief, by the way, so she's not just randomly saying it on behalf of the Labour Party. She's come out and said, no, she's reeled off all the policies that Labour had previously stated as saying, these are still intact. This is still what we're going to do in the first 100 days when we form a government. This is going to be part of the Employment Rights Act, I think it's going to be called, or the Workers' Rights Act. I can't remember. But there's a bill they're going to legislate for in the first 100 days, and it's going to include what are the various things in it. I think it's getting rid of 0 hours contracts, isn't it? It's getting rid of the idea that you can just keep, like, this is the thing they're beating about, keeping people like effectively as if they're on probation for like 2 years or something. Yeah. It's like, so that they can deny you.
Rehire as well.
Yeah. So they can, but the particular issue that Momentum and Unite are going on about is the idea of keeping workers on this sort of probation thing so that you are then denied some workers' rights. And Labour going, no, if they're, no, employees will have like their employment rights. Yeah. At the same time, the row doesn't necessarily do Labour any harm. It sounds like a red on red attack because most of the unions go, no, we're perfectly happy with this. It's just Unite and Momentum who are on a particular fringe of the left anyway.
And the Brexiteers.
Yeah. But the thing is, it does Labour no harm because it goes back to this difficulty. Like the Tories always say, we're going to, workers are going to have a great time and business owners are going to have a great time. And the way we're going to do that is to help the business owners do whatever they want and the workers will naturally benefit. So the business owners go, yeah, great. That means you're not going to interfere with us. And the workers go, right, okay, you're right. Yeah, you said we'll get good pay and good jobs. Right, great, we'll do for that. Whereas with Labour, they know full well they can't. They've got to say what the trade-offs are. So it doesn't do them any harm at all if people aren't clear what the trade-offs are. So you could have business leaders at the moment going, they're watering it down. Oh, that might suit us. But whereas you've got workers going, but Angela Rayner said, no, it's all totally intact. And then people may not be quite sure. And it would harm Labour if the Conservatives had a coherent industrial strategy, but they don't. So, Labour can afford for it to be a little bit muddled. One point that was made in the Financial Times article on it when they broke it, which was quite a good point, is they said the last time Labour won an election, like for example, the BBC, if you wanted to watch the BBC, you had to watch it on television, or you recorded it and watched it later on video. That was it. That was the only way. So it allowed politicians of the time in all sorts of countries, and they could sort of be a bit sly, and they could go to one group of people and say, these are our policies, and put the emphasis on what they want to hear. And you could go to another group and go, these are our policies, and put the emphasis on what they want to hear.
Isn't that what Boris Johnson did when he was talking to the people in Northern Ireland?
Yeah, but it doesn't work now because everyone else sees it as well.
Works for Boris Johnson. Hey, before you go on, can I just jump in with the super chats because we're neglecting our wonderful people who are throwing money at us at the moment. We got $10 US from Christine Cash. Thank you very much. The thumbs up. We got Johnny Cophead saying, Graham, you're a bit quiet. I think it's because Phil's doing all the talking, but also I've turned my mic levels up, so hopefully you can hear me now. But thanks for letting me know. Also, we've got Graham Haller there with £5 super chat. It seems that Elon is removing the block function on Twitter. Get busy and block all those right-wing hate mongers while you can, which is fair enough. And we just got another one in from Colin Webb, another £2 super chat. And also, Leaf Huntress has just, she's put in, Graham, can you please make it clear that Starmer's parents didn't pay his school fees? I think on the privateschoolmafia.com website, it does say became fee paying while he was there. And I don't think that
But he didn't pay.
He didn't.
The school became fee paying, but he didn't pay because students who were already there, that was part of the deal.
Do I have to put all that in my spreadsheet?
You might do.
I've already put that it became fee paying while he was there. But like private school, Banksy went to private school. Momentum, you mentioned Momentum. So John Landsman and James Schneider, who founded Momentum, both privately educated. James Schneider went to Winchester, for God's sake. So these are like very, very rich people who seem to have a problem with Labour as they are now. And it's kind of, I do find it a bit painful that whenever I watch a video by Novara Media or something with Owen Jones in it, like it's a bit of a lottery. It could be a video that's slagging the Tories and it's good and it's well researched and everything. And then every so often they just do a video just saying, "Oh, but Keir Starmer's just as bad." Isn't that a right-wing talking point? Isn't that like a tabloid talking point?
Yeah, it is. But also, it's just because it's ideology. What an ideology is. It's like when you want a particular outcome with a very specific method to get there. Whereas I'm more pragmatic. I want outcomes, and I don't really mind how you get there, as long as you get there. So the problem is, as soon as they see someone who's not going to deliver, who's not in the right vehicle, even if it's going in the right direction, or it's not, and that's the wrong vehicle. And so they attack it immediately. And it is interesting that a lot of these people are people themselves who will never struggle. Like my attitude is like, so what I think every time Labour lose.
That's what really gets me about the Brexiteers. Nearly all the Brexiteers that whether left or right wouldn't be as affected by Brexit as the rest of us. They could afford the increase in the cost of living. They could afford the increase in the cost of food. They could still go and live and work anywhere in Europe they wanted to because they got the money to do so. I mean, yeah, you can go and live and work in Spain, but you need $5,000 in your bank account now.
I mean, they don't, like when Labour lose, I just think to myself, that's people that are now going to die needlessly, and it's people are now going to be plunged into poverty needlessly. Yeah. But they don't think of that because it's never been them, and it never will be.
Yeah. And this is why.
And they mean well. They actually mean well.
Do they?
But they don't understand. They do. It's just that they don't understand. They don't understand the price of failure. Yeah. So they're trying to. That's why, you have the saying, don't make good the enemy of great. But that's what they do. And the thing is, they're after this utopia, they're after this perfect thing. And they will go through any number of losses because they don't really understand what those losses are. They're just losses. It's like losing a game of something. It's like losing a game in a sport. But it's not. It's people who are now going to die, and the people left behind who's lost someone years before their time.
Yeah.
It's, I have lost someone to Tory austerity when he was in his like 40s, only just as well. And, and I've had nothing as well. So it's like,
Yeah.
I know, I cannot just treat it as a game.
Yeah.
When Labour
It is
lose,
life
I
and
sort of
death.
know
It
what it's,
is.
yeah.
But I think there's a lot of people who are in the sort of the cut and thrust of it, in not necessarily in the actual political party, but activists and also pundits like ourselves, who are they do see it as a game. They just see it as a bit of a laugh. The Tories do, especially especially like Boris Johnson. The way he treated everything to do with politics was just a bloody good laugh. He just wants to party every night and not actually look after the party. But you're right, it is a matter of life and death. And as we're seeing now, I keep going back to the 1980s when Britain led the way on banning CFCs. And why couldn't we do that with climate change? Why couldn't we lead the way? The EU would argue amongst itself that America would never go that way because they're too dependent on their own oil that they make. We weren't dependent on our own oil for our economy. We could have taken the grasped the nettle and led the world in this, and we chose not to.
Yeah.
And when you bring it up with people, they go, "Oh, but China's not doing anything," and I'm like, "Well, that's not an excuse for us to do nothing as well."
Yeah.
People go on about us being the 5th biggest economy, even though apparently now we're a poor country for some reason.
Because first of all, distribution of wealth is very poor, and second of all, the wealth of the country, if you take London out of it, it's like not very good, because London is a black hole that sucks everything into it.
Yeah. Well, big thank you to GHK, who's just thrown £2 into the super chat. Outcomes over ideology, yes. Time required, absolutely. And I think that we have to get really serious in this next election, because the time for playing games is over. The whole of Brexit was a game. We were getting lied to left, right, and centre. And for people like millionaires like Nigel Farage, Aaron Banks, and Dominic Cummings, they don't give a shit. No, they'll just retire to their country piles and, I don't know. Do they swim in money like Scrooge McDuck? Is that?
I would advise against it. It probably hurts. It hurts enough if you're jumping towards from that height, let alone solid gold.
Michael Askew is saying, where I live, Newcastle feels very depressed and in need of investment. Yeah, Michael, I live in Durham, so Newcastle's just up the road from me. I was there on Monday night, actually, trying to watch a film, but we failed. Well, we saw up to the last 10 minutes of it, but then we had to leave because they messed up the projection thing. Anyway, that's another story. But Newcastle, when I came up in the sort of the 2000s, especially, I remember I came up for like a film festival, probably about 2006 or something, and it was brilliant. It obviously just had a load of investment, walking up that road towards the Grays Monument from Grays Monument from the station. It looked like it had been cleaned up, and it's got its Sunday best on. Same with Liverpool, actually, around that era. And going back there just this week, and you're walking up that same road, it all looks down at heel. There's loads of closed shops, loads of homeless people. There wasn't that many homeless people in the past when Labour were in. I mean, there still were homeless people.
Yeah.
Do you remember the whole "don't give to make the change, keep your change"? Was that Jack Straw?
I don't remember.
Wanted to do that? No, it wasn't Jack Straw.
I don't remember that.
It was back in the day, and everyone was like, "What are you doing?" Oh no, it would have been. I think it would have been Gordon Brown saying, "Don't give money to people who are begging," and I'm like, I don't know if that's the way you want to put that message across. But by the by, Newcastle now and Manchester and Liverpool and a lot of other cities, they seem to have reached that sort of peak around sort of 13 years ago, let's say, and since then it's a gradual decline, and that's because of the lack of investment by the
lack of any interest. I mean, when you talk about like high streets and things like that, there are obviously natural pressures. It's not just because the Tories shut them down like 80s industry. You've got online retailers, it's more convenient to order online. So high streets do have problems. But it's because the government haven't actually... They say, the Conservatives insist that they want to regenerate the high street and save the high street, but they don't actually have any policies for it.
Yeah.
One thing you could do immediately, because what looks really bad is when you have... There's two problems. When you've got boarded up shops or shops that are just standing out, it just looks bad.
Yeah.
But for
Broken window theory.
everyone that's got a business in it,
Yeah.
there'll be customers who go there, and then they'll see other businesses and maybe go into those. And all you have to do, the problem is, it's not that there aren't businesses who want to set up there, it's that the rents are too high. Because if you own several properties on a high street, if you own say 5, you can make more money by hiring 3 of them out at your high prices and keep the other 2 empty than you can to have like a Dutch auction on them, which is what the obvious solution would be. That way, there should be. Whereas my attitude when it comes to anything to do with business is completely opposite to the Conservatives. Like, oh, leave them alone, let them do their own thing. No, every business, every organisation, every bit of investment in this country should justify itself in terms of its benefit to society. Yeah. So if you own properties in the high street, they are supposed to be for businesses. Make sure there's a business in them. If you're pricing business out of the market, like if you can charge high rents and someone will take it, that's fine, great. But if you can't, then lower your prices. That's how it's going to work. And if you don't do that, I would say, well, you have an obligation to do that, because your building standing empty is actually damaging our society, and you shouldn't be able to damage our society. You should justify yourself. I can understand the business has to justify itself to its shareholders, its profits. They focus on profit. The government is supposed to focus on society. But of course, Conservatives think there's no such thing as society, don't they?
Oh yeah, Maggie Thatcher's famous line.
But I don't actually know if it was true, to be honest, but it's attributed to her, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
But it certainly comes from the Tories.
There was a video I was watching today on TikTok where the guy was talking about, the difference between left and right. And they say, well, it could be socialism and capitalism, but then you have these sort of crossovers, and you have people who are, fascists and things that, also
want
to control people's lives.
It's better to think of the political compass, really, rather than that. Because a lot of people, so left and right really is economic, and then
his point was that he thought that the people on the left were basically wanted a more equal society, and the people on the right wanted a more hierarchical society, and that's the best way to break it down, because that accounts for all the exceptions.
It doesn't, yeah, but it doesn't really, because there are very. The problem is that there's social attitudes and economic attitudes, and you need to separate them out. And too many people think right wing. It's purely economic, because then people think, well, authority. You've got a lot of people are very authoritarian on the right. That is only because that's where the money is, and people who've got a lot of money want authority because they're happy with the system. But in reality, you can have in fact, this is where the Brexit Party and now Reform UK and the likes of Nigel Farage profit, because there's a load of people who are quite authoritarian in their attitudes in this country, but they're left-leaning economically. And there's no party that and everyone gives Labour shit when they even tentatively dip a toe into that sort of territory. But there's a whole quadrant of society and no party until the Brexit Party came along. Because they do, until the Brexit Party, and we know they're not really left-wing, but they propose left-wing solutions, but very authoritarian ones as well. We know that they are not really left-wing, because these are the same people advocating the breakup of the NHS and making it a fully American-style privatized healthcare system and all the rest of it.
They don't want equality, do they?
No, but they will. But the party nonetheless presents left-wing policies, but very authoritarian ones as well, because they know there's a whole swathe of people in that area who want good public services, free at point of access, all the rest of it. They want, and they accept that taxes will be used to pay for that, but they also like the idea of kicking down and being mean to foreigners, and and preserving our white culture and all the rest of it. Those sort of people. And it's Labour traditionally used to get those people because it's what was more important to them, social attitudes or economic? Well, when you're poor, you're an ordinary poor working person, obviously the economics is more important, so you vote Labour. Whereas nowadays, the likes of Farage are saying, well, no, we will give it you. I mean, Boris Johnson initially at the last election said, we'll give it you all. We'll
Yeah.
give you the hospitals. We'll give you the better jobs.
40
the
new
better paid
hospitals.
jobs. Yeah. Oh, Rishi Sunak's promising it again now. I think he might have promised 50.
Yeah. Graham Haller's picking up on something that I've mentioned quite a few times. Before their faults, Thatcher had a degree in chemistry from Oxford. So when she read a scientific paper, she understood it, which is one of the reasons why we led the world in the banning of CFCs, to try and heal the hole in the ozone layer, or the depletion of the whole ozone layer. This lot are only schooled in the classics and PPE, so have I think the word limited is missing there, Graham. Limited understanding of the science, which is completely true, and a lack of respect as well
that's it,
for science, which is more of a thing, because I don't have any. I mean, aside from my GCSEs, I don't have any qualifications in any sciences, but I respect science. I understand how the scientific method works, and if 100% of scientists say that X is happening, like, human-caused climate change, I'm inclined to agree with this. Oh wow, we just got a €50 super chat from Just Me and Vids. Thank you so much. Night all. Stay safe. I'll watch the rest on catch up. Been up for 18 hours. Cheers. Thank you so much. Just Me and Videos there. Dropping €50 into the super chat. Wow. Just to go back to the chat as well. Colin was asking, Phil and Graham, what are you reading these days? Any recommendations? I'd like to recommend Empire Land by Sathnam Sanghera, which is about he's a Sikh guy who's sort of all the privilege of being born in Britain, and it's talking about the role of the empire in our national psyche, and it's not too one-sided. And to be honest with you, if you do have a very sort of active imagination like I do, there's a few things that people in the British Empire did in the past that are absolutely horrific. And it tells it all, the good and the bad, and basically there's a bit more bad. But he reckons that you can't just sum it up as British Empire bad or British Empire good. It's a little bit more nuanced than that. But really good book. Really got me thinking, and lots of really good information in there as well that I didn't know about. People coming from all over the empire to live here in the UK, which was really fascinating. Are you reading anything at the moment?
Only fiction that's not related to politics. I've just seen a comment there saying Teresa Coffey has a PhD in chemistry. What's her excuse? She's got no principles. That's her excuse.
Oh God!
And she's living in a time. See, I will say this as well about some, even of the current cabinet ministers, but certainly some other ministers. If there was a more principled Conservative government around now, some of them would come over a lot better than they do.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they're people are sheeple, and a lot of politicians are the same. And there's quite a lot of them. If they're part of a principled party that's still winning and being able to be principled, they would come over at least a lot. We may still disagree with them, but they'd come over a lot better than they are. But because they're not, because they're part of a party that feels that the only way it can win is by being, descending into the gutter and then digging down through the gutter, that's what they do. Because at the end of the day, the principle for them is power. That is the overriding principle.
Yeah. Ray, GHK has dropped £2 in super chat. Thank you very much, GHK. And Reagan had skin cancer. I didn't know he had skin cancer. I thought he had. I thought he got Alzheimer's towards the end.
Well, he certainly had Alzheimer's. Yes.
Yeah, I think he was getting that way while he was still president, wasn't he?
Well, spit and image certainly. They did that series, The President's Brain is Missing.
Well, also he was getting his wife was consulting like an astrologist over what their foreign policy should be. That's terrifying. That's like it just. Say what you like about Trump, but at least he didn't employ an astrologer
to rant today.
Sorry?
Have you seen his drunken rant today?
I haven't seen it. Do you know what? I was setting this up on YouTube just before we came on. And I saw a thing about it, but he was going to do a press conference, wasn't he, on Monday? It was going to blow everything open. He was going to come out with all this evidence, and we all know someone like this, don't we? He's got like, hey, I know something, but I can't tell you. I'll let you know in a few days' time. You can't trust me. I'm a bit woo way. And this guy has said, I've got all this great evidence on Monday and I'll release it on Monday. And he's not going to do that. And on Wednesday, he was supposed to be doing one of the first debates with the other candidates for the primary, for who will be the Republican
should hold it in
representative.
Georgia so they can arrest him.
Well. This is the thing. He said he's not going to do it. He's going to do a interview with Tucker Carlson, formerly of Fox News, who was sacked unceremoniously from Fox News for just being too mad. This is a guy who's supporting Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine up to the hilt. And obviously, he's a mad Trump supporter. But it's interesting. He's gone over to sort of Twitter. And Twitter, if that's true about them ending the blocking feature on Twitter, I mean, just what's the point anymore? I'm using Threads. And Russian Cheshire, who does The Week in Tory, which is brilliant, has moved over completely. He's not doing anything on there. Emma Kennedy is completely on Threads now. There's quite a few people who I follow who I know as well who just not bothering. Oh, by the way, back to the books. A Decade in Tory. I'm not reading it yet because my partner's still reading it, but it's absolutely freaking hilarious and mortifying at the same time. Russ Jones.
Do you know, linking in with Russian Cheshire, do you know what? My most viewed tweet, after all the Liz Truss debacle, I said, if someone writes a book about this summer, they should call it Four Chancellors and a Funeral. Then he brought out a book called Four Chancellors and a Funeral, and I pointed out my tweet.
Brilliant. Yeah. A Decade in Tory, an inventory of idiocy from the coalition to COVID by Russell Jones. It is just The Decade in Tory. Well, epic, a big book, absolutely massive tome. You'd be surprised if you buy it online. It's kind of got this funny fun cover, and you think, oh, it's not going to be that big. It's just a comedy book, but actually, it's like proper doorstop. What else have we got in the chat here? Reagan got hit by a ricochet bullet off the bulletproof glass in his car. One of the only funny things that I remember with Reagan, and he had that sort of folksy kind of charm that what's his name, Bush, Bush Jr. had, and also to some people, don't at me on this, but like some people think that Trump has folksy charm because he tells it like it is, and he's a blue collar billionaire. This is a man who's given $1 million on his 18th birthday by his dad. So yeah. Blue collar, as blue collar as it gets.
And $1 million then was a hell of a lot more than $1 million now.
Yeah. But I remember there was a speech that Reagan was given in the late 80s. Oh no, it was actually just after he got out of hospital after being shot, and a balloon went off. Did you remember this? A balloon went pop in the room that he was in, and he didn't even miss a beat. He just went, "Miss me," which I like. But yeah, the origins of all our problems right now: Thatcher and Reaganomics. Colin Webb, thank you very much for the £2 super chat. Should Labour stay defensive with a 20-point lead? I say yes. Phil, what do you reckon?
Well, it's better to do that than be reckless. I think there are certain. I would still say they can sharpen up their messaging. I still say there's no reason why that you use the mainstream media to get your message out to the target voters. I still see no reason why you can't emphasize some other policies that are out there anyway for anyone who's interested via other means of communication, using social media. So for example, like we had this thing, Financial Times come the thing out, Labour are watching these things down. Angela Rayner straight away comes out saying, bollocks are we? Do more of that. Because the number of times, like for example, like a couple of weeks ago, that at the start of the asylum week, when Stephen Kinnock said, we want to move people out of these asylum barges as soon as possible. And Sky News or Independent or someone reported that as, Labour says they will use the barges temporarily. It's like, no, he said that they'll be in those barges when they come to power. So technically there'll be a Labour government and they'll be in those barges, but they're going to move them out as quickly as possible, he said. But if they had their own lines of communication like that, they could just immediately do a video on their own YouTube channel or something like that going, right, let us be clear. No, we're not going to use these temporarily. We're not going to put people on the barges. We're going to move them off. We just can't do it inside 24 hours. It may take some time, but we are going to work to move them off as soon as we can. They could have just made it really clear like that.
Yeah, the
And that way,
communication is the one thing that Labour
yeah.
really needs.
And
I'm less concerned now about policy. I know that sounds really not like me, but I'm so sick of the Tories. I need them out. I need them gone. So whatever it takes at the moment. But Labour, I don't think do themselves any favors by the way that they communicate.
No.
And we're trying to help them. We went on the Labour. Should we talk about this? We went on the Labour YouTube page earlier this week, and we were just looking at. We went to the popular videos, and there's videos there of Jeremy Corbyn still up. There's videos from 16 years ago, like Tony Blair. They're still up on this. It's just set it to private, man. They're not relevant. Just get rid of them. It's as though they went, we went for a lot of time and effort to make that video 16 years ago, so we're going to leave it on the site forever.
Yeah, but it should be really simple. So they say a thing, right? And okay, sometimes you can argue they should try and work. Oh well, they're obviously going to twist it like this, so let's say it like this instead. You can't do that all the time. At the end of the day, if someone wants to twist your words, they're going to twist your words. But it should be so simple. All you have to do, because the people, they don't really care if the target voters get that twisted, because that's who it's for anyway. They don't mind that. It's for others. It's for people further on the left. And all you need to do is immediately go on your own outlet, someone who's supporting you, do an interview where you just say, oh, this is how it's been twisted. That's not what you meant, is it? No, I meant this. And rephrase it. Now that you've seen how they twisted the words, you come up with your statement that's more explicitly what you mean. And that way, any bonehead on Twitter going, oh, look at this headline, oh, Labour, what do they even stand for? You can say, no, that's not what they said. And you can link the clip of where they've clarified the position. And how easy would that be?
Yeah.
That would be an absolute piece of piss. Because that way you can account, you don't have to stay up all night trying to work out how some arsehole's going to try and twist what you say. You can just answer it, and then you've got a way of clearing up any mess afterwards.
Yeah. David Farrow said in the chat earlier, said what just happened by Marina Hyde is worth a read. So that's next to my partner's side of the bed, because she's reading that after Decade in Tory. So I could just jump in, but she's quite close to the end of Decade in Tory, but we have actually got what just happened by Marina Hyde. So I don't know if it's good yet, but I assume that it is. So there's another book that we can heartily recommend. But yeah, Damien Pritchard saying, I agree, Thatcher and Reagan economics are the root cause of all our problems. 1979, mate. You look at any chart of social progress, mortgages to wage inflation, inflation to wage inflation, all those things start going in the wrong direction. 1979,
well,
the year I was
before
born.
that, Republicans actually used to tax the rich at one time.
Yes.
They were happy with that. It worked. It's like, well, of course we're going to tax the rich. We need to build our country.
Yeah. But now, there was I think it was in Massachusetts. I think they were taxing the millionaires. So if you, I don't know if it was a wealth tax or an income tax, but if it was over $1 million, if you were earning, I guess, over $1 million, they had a 4% excess tax on everyone, and they were using that to pay for free school meals for all the kids going to school in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So it can be done. It can be done. Yes. Darian says Labour need to restart its rapid response media unit. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if they've got a media unit at the moment. The way that things are done, it's very slow. They're very slow to respond to what the Tories are doing. And there's that argument of don't interrupt your enemy while they're making a mistake. But at the same time, I worry about the absolute domination of the media by the right wingers. What's his name? Farage can't get a bank account. That was on the front cover of all our newspapers for 2 freaking weeks.
Until he got it back, and then he said, oh, you know how I was going to be a champion for everyone who's in this situation? Yeah, I'm not doing that anymore.
I'm not doing that anymore. But yeah, they control the narrative to a ridiculous degree. And I do feel like Labour, could do a bit more with it. I mean, it always feels quite responsive. So when this idiot Education Secretary yesterday said that A levels didn't matter. Gillian Keegan, she said, A levels, everyone's forgotten about your A levels in 10 years' time. There was a response from Labour on that. The shadow Education Secretary said this is, you know, really horrible thing to say. But it just doesn't really get much coverage. They're not really getting that message out there. And I feel like they should be using social media a lot more, which we've discussed to death.
Yeah.
But it's such an opportunity to do broadcasts like this where we're just chatting with people and bringing people on board with, you know, there's people who watch Labour Social who aren't Labour members, not interested in the Labour Party, but, you know, they like the people that we have on it.
I mean, they don't even have to do it in that sort of, they can do it in a more controlled way as well. You could just, you know, get in touch with whichever shadow secretary of state and go, look, you know, they've twisted your policies like this. Should we just go through a few things? We'll record a thing where I ask you some questions to clarify the thing, we get the clarification out. And then anyone on Twitter or Facebook who tries to say, oh, look at this headline, what do Labour stand for? And I see it so many times. Oh, what do Labour even stand for? You just link them the thing. Stop listening. Stop believing every word that's written in the Tory pissing media.
Well, exactly. But they should have a meme unit, because I was thinking this when we were fighting against Brexit. Like, just having some central website that you could go to and it would have a meme of the day, just responding to whatever nonsense is being shared on social media from one day to the next. So people didn't have to write lengthy, goddamn well-researched responses, waste their time arguing with dickheads. And they could just literally Control-C, Control-V. There you go. That's my work done for the day. And they can log off and go and do something more productive with their time. Talking to people on social media never really gets very far. Arguing with people on social media, you never really get very far, do you?
Well, it's sometimes amusing.
I get too agitated. Do you know what I mean? And I end up going to bed angry, and then I sort like I can't sleep because I'm thinking of something to write back to them. So then I'm like, I get up and write it. I write it in bed. I go, and then I press send, and I just like turn my phone off and throw it to the other side of the room and go to sleep.
No, fine. I always start off with the assumption that someone actually wants to engage, and at the point at which it's quite clear they don't, I will just post something inflammatory. I'll just look, here's a wasp's nest. I'm just going to leave this here for you, and now I'm going to leave Twitter for 12 hours. Have fun. But yeah. It would just be so much easier if they were to just like, okay, we've said this thing, this is how it's being twisted, this is what our actual position is. And the thing is, the beauty of it is, even if Labour are thinking, well, we don't actually mind our target voters reading the mainstream media thinking this, it's like, yeah, but there's loads of other voters who don't. And those ones that you're targeting with the mainstream media, they're not actually going to read the things on Twitter or Facebook or something. So there's no harm in you, or YouTube, there's no harm in you just clarifying it for those people as well.
Yeah.
Because it's your position anyway. If someone asks them straight out, if a journalist asks them straight out, is this your policy? They'll say yes anyway, because they've published it. It's not like we're getting them to give us secret snippets of the manifesto that's not yet been published. You know, it's all the stuff that they've already put up there. Angela Rayner, in her first tweet, she had like an 8-tweet thing, response to it. In the very first one, it was the article on like the Labour website of that workers' rights bill.
Yeah.
And she just reposted it as if to say, every word that we said then still applies now.
Yeah.
You know, so it's already up there. All we're doing is getting them to reiterate just what Angela Rayner did say. All we're doing is getting them to do that on a consistent basis.
Yeah. Phil in the chat's asking, Tim in the chat is asking, is it just Phil and Graham show today? Yes, I'm afraid it is. Literally everyone's on holiday. So it's just me and Phil at the moment. But once the silly season's over and we're back into the cut and thrust of politics, and don't forget we've got the Rejoin March coming up in September, which hopefully some of the people who are watching this might be attending. Me and Phil will be there. And then in October, there's the Labour Party conference in Liverpool. Phil and I will be there for that as well, along with Femi and Supertansky, talking at the Camp of Furnace on the Monday night of the conference. What date is that? Is that the 6th, is it? 6th of October? To look that up. But
no, that doesn't sound right. 6th is a Friday. What are we on about?
9th.
Ninth is a
Ninth.
Monday.
I was getting me six of my nines upside down. The 9th of October, we'll be appearing at the Camp and Furnace at 5 o'clock, 5 till 6, and then we've got the bar. We got used to the bar afterwards. It's going to be £3 on Eventbrite. It'll be £5 on the door. But if you are a patron of Phil's or Labour Socials or mine or one of the YouTube members of either of our channels, we'll give you a code so you can get the tickets for free. So there you go. Come see us in Liverpool. Anyway, that's the advertisement breakover. Do I have to declare that, Phil? Do I have to say we did an advert in our broadcast?
Because
they say
ourselves.
Oh, okay. Is that allowed? It's permitted. Yeah. So my brilliant idea that it was the chat that was stopping our ads from getting causing our ads to get limited. It's not. The two shows I've done today, the Morning Brew and then the 1 o'clock show that we did. Yeah, they both got restricted. So we're gonna have to think of another thing that might be causing us to automatically trigger the limited ads every time we post a video on this goddamn hell site. Well, no, it's not a hell site. I take it back. YouTube, you're lovely. You're much better than Twitter at the moment. Oh my god. I sometimes still. You're still using Twitter, aren't you, Phil?
Yeah, I like Twitter. Twitter, for my purposes, do you know, I don't even block anyone anyway. So nothing he's doing is damaging it for me, but the value for me are the people I follow. So the more people that I find useful who leave it, there will come a point where it won't be useful for that reason. But nothing that he's doing affects me personally.
GHK reckons.
If he chases loads of other people away, then you know.
GHK reckons it's my hat.
It wasn't demonetized when I wore the hat. Different hat, but you know, it's quite simple.
But I get that, but I find Twitter now just too much. It's just too much. It's just like I've got to go through so much crap before I get to anything that I actually want to read.
I go on it for the crap.
Yeah, masochist. I think I'm doing. I just get wound up, and then I don't want to get into conversations with people that I don't know who've got 6 followers and strident beliefs.
Well, I don't very often do that. As I say, sometimes I might post a comment. If someone responds to it, I might engage. You know, and then if it just turns out we're in disagreement, I'll quite happily go on for hours back and forth. But if they actually just like, if they're a sea lion or a troll or something, I just drop them a hornet's nest and leave.
Daily Blase saying, if I'm honest, I'm totally different to replying to people like that. I very rarely do. If at any other time I do reply, I only reply twice because my sanity is way more important, my friend. Well, it's funny you say that because I try to steer away from politics on Facebook. And the reason being is I know the people who are my friends on Facebook. I know a lot of them in real life, whereas the people on Twitter, I'm like, I don't know you. I don't know who you are. So I can insult them, insult their mother, and then block them. I can't do that on Facebook because I'll see them at a party or something. They'll be like, you called my mum XYZ and then you blocked me. And I'll be like, oh, sorry, yeah, I did do that. So yeah, I just use Facebook now for just, I don't know, posting holiday pictures.
Well, I'm just replying on Twitter now to GB News. It's always a good laugh. Like Lee Anderson apparently has been saying about the barge or the Hulk, really, whatever you want to call it, prison ship. If it's good enough for hard-working professional oil rig workers, then I think it's good enough for immigrants to be housed on. Well, two things. First of all, it wasn't good enough for them. That's how we were able to pay $1.6 billion quid to hire it. Secondly,
$1.6 billion.
That was for 220 workers. It was supposed to be for, and it weren't good enough for them. We're trying to jam 500 on it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say it wasn't good enough for them. That's why.
Viv is saying, if anyone gets abusive, I usually suggest that they are trolls and they suddenly disappear. On Twitter, I generally don't get into debates or anything. I'll just insult them and block them before they can report me for insulting them. That's it. But I've not had to block anyone on Threads. So I've been using Threads for 6 weeks now. When did the Threads start? But I've not had to block anyone on that yet. I only really see stuff that I want to see. It's more like TikTok in that respect. I don't really see anything on TikTok that I don't that I wouldn't necessarily be interested in. I think the algorithm gets me quite, knows me quite well. It knows me so well, which is both disconcerting and comforting at the same time. Welcome to the modern world, the modern age. Darian saying Trump would still have won because of the Electoral College. Bernie would have probably won the popular vote, but wouldn't have been enough. Indeed, Frank says, did Graham give you the hat, Phil?
No, I have my own hat. It is incredibly similar. In fact, it might be identical, but because it looks very similar. Yeah, but it is my own hat. See, they were both seen in the same chat stream at the same time.
Yeah. My hat, my original hat. This is a replacement. My original hat I got in Alice Springs in Australia.
Well, this is the most
Australian hat you could get.
Now, this does say Butte Australian style leather hat, but I know I got it from Peru, so it's not actually Australian. Just an Australian style hat.
So is that alpaca leather then?
I ain't got a clue.
This is kangaroo.
I didn't go to Peru to buy it. I just bought it. I imported it from Peru.
Oh. Don't let the Brexiteers find out you've been importing stuff to this country. Put up the drawbridge. Don't allow us to buy anything from abroad. We'll stand on our own 2 feet, Phil. We'll do it.
God knows how much it would cost to do it now. Although from Peru, I suppose. Was that part of Mercosur? I don't know.
Yes, Mercosur. Is it? Mercosur? I don't know. Peru is, I think. Yeah.
Is it? Right.
Peru,
so
Argentina, Brazil,
now.
Ecuador. One of the first things that they did when Chavez got in Venezuela was he pulled them out of all the regional trade blocks.
Yeah.
So that other countries couldn't sort of impose economic sort of woes on Venezuela, and Venezuela could stand on its own 2 feet, apparently.
Yeah.
And Venezuela is just, it's a beggar on a throne of gold. It's got the biggest oil reserves in the world. Can't access a lot of it. You can fill your tank up for like $2. No, not even $2, 2 cents. It's insane. And by tank, I mean Sherman tank. I don't mean like a tank of petrol. It is just insanely cheap to buy fuel there. But it doesn't really benefit them. And a lot, when I was living in Panama, the first few years I lived there, you could literally just, your entry stamp ran out after 6 months. So you just go over the border into Costa Rica for a beer and then walk back into Panama, and boom, you get another 6 months in the country without having to apply for residency or anything. But then because there's so many refugees coming over from Venezuela, they had to tighten up the immigration because people were saying, these people are coming taking our jobs. All the same nonsense that we have to put up with here with, Tories and UKIPers and Brexiteers and that. And as a result of that, now when you're in Panama, you still get 6 months, but then you have to spend a year out of the country. A year. You have to spend a month out of the country before you can come back, which is actually
all that.
Yeah, it's better though. It's still better than our situation now with our own continent of Europe, where you only get 3 months in every 6.
Yes.
Which just
and you can't lump it together for a year or anything. It's like 90 days out of 180. That's a lot.
Yeah, and they brought back roaming charges for a lot of mobile phone providers, or they've capped the amount of roaming you get for free with things like giffgaff. It used to be just whatever you had on your package. Now I think it's only 5 gigs. And there's the whole thing about the entry to the museums and the historical places that we went to in Greece last week. It ended up costing us over €100 more to take the kids because we had to pay everywhere because we weren't EU citizens anymore. If we were still EU citizens, the kids would have got in for free. And they said nothing would change. They also said we wouldn't leave the single market. So, never trust a Brexiteer. That's what I say. No. That's my motto. Put it on a cup. Should we put that on? Should I make a cup to sell on the Labour Social Teespring site? I say never trust a Brexiteer. What do you reckon? Do you think that'll go down well?
You have to be careful. Some people, it's the same thing when I often distinguish, for example, between Conservatives and Tories. Like if I'm talking about someone really unpleasant, I call them a Tory. Whereas if I think they might be principled, I call them a Conservative. But some
aren't they the same thing? Isn't that like interchangeable?
No, it can be because they call themselves Tories, but obviously, Tory was always intended as an insult from the Irish. So, but they call themselves it. But then so if I do that and I say something very unpleasant about Tories, I don't necessarily mean all conservatives, but if you're a conservative, you might think of yourself as a Tory, and you might think I'm having a pop at you as well. So it's always quite weird as to who, like I would describe a Brexiteer as someone who actively campaigned for it rather than someone who just voted leave. But what if they don't think that? So it's all very tricky. It's because we don't define our political terms properly.
No, we don't. But I mean, the Tory party were the precursors to the Conservative Party. So the Tory party goes back to what, 16?
Well, yeah, they came from a couple.
Something like that.
A couple merged, didn't they?
And then, in the modern Tory party was under Robert Peel, I think, who was the founder of it, which was 1834, I think. And then they changed the name officially to the Conservative. I think it was always quite loose. I mean, the term Prime Minister didn't come into actual use until the turn of the 20th century. Before then, it was just First Treasury Minister to whatever it says on the letterbox.
First Lord of the Treasury.
First Lord of the Treasury, yeah. But and Prime Minister was an insult because it was like, oh, you're the favourite, you're the teacher's pet. It was the equivalent of saying you're the teacher's pet to the king.
Yeah. But I think the one who caused the merger in the first place, wasn't it Sir Arthur Wellesley? It was the Duke of Wellington. He was a really good battlefield general, but an absolutely shite politician. So he became Prime Minister, completely bollocksed up the party, and I think that's what caused the change.
Yeah.
Afterwards.
Ben is saying that Marcus Allshorts posted a video relating to GB News presenters laughing at a climate change activist explaining climate change. They were as unpleasant as you'd imagine. I mean, just...
But that's what they have to do. They have to ridicule these people so that then they're trying to get their viewers not to take them seriously. It's almost like they don't need their viewers to understand any criticism of it. It's just if they see people who are supposed to be knowledgeable, because of course you're knowledgeable, someone's paying you a lot of money to present the news, you must be knowledgeable. And they're ridiculing. It's almost like, well, it's beneath contempt to even discuss what they're doing wrong. We'll just ridicule it because it's obvious to everyone. You know, it's Emperor's New Clothes type tactics. Yeah.
Dan Wootton is still on GB News. They haven't got rid of him.
Not on the Mail.
They haven't got rid of him, even though he's, he should be in jail. He should be in jail.
Well, he should certainly be investigated.
It's horrific.
He should be investigated. And I don't know why there isn't a criminal investigation, given that there are very serious effectively criminal complaints being made. I don't understand why there's not even an investigation.
Well, he was accused of the presenter who killed herself. He was accused of causing that to happen, and also Lily Allen said that the bullying, the constant horribleness from Dan Wootton, drove her to the edge as well. I mean, he's just a horrible, horrible human being, and there he is on GB News, massive Brexiteer. Obviously, he's not even British; he's from New Zealand, and I think he's banned from New Zealand. I think he's kicked out. Can't go back now or something. But just the fact that he's still on TV, and he was mouthing off about Hugh Edwards, saying how disgraceful it was and all this. Massive hypocrite. Yeah. What he's done is so much worse than what Hugh Edwards is accused of doing. Jupp James is saying all political parties developed, though. The Nazis from the 40s couldn't exist without the Nazis from the 30s. It couldn't exist in the Nazis of the 20s. Yeah. I think they started as they meant to go on. I mean,
yes.
Mein Kampf isn't particularly nice about Jewish people, or it's all about conspiracy theories, and we were robbed, and feeling aggrieved, and getting the sort of the rich, powerful people in the country to feel aggrieved at their situation in life, and you're like, really? But that's what the right wing are very, very good at doing. Leaf Huntress says, for Brexiteers, I use Donald Tusk's definition. There is a special place in hell for those who promoted Brexit without even a sketch of a plan how to carry it out safely.
Well, they didn't want it carried out safely. They're basically salvage experts. They wanted the country broken up so that they could make money.
Yeah. Bastards. Right, should we wrap it up? We've been wanging on for an hour, Phil. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about this week?
No, I think we've covered either earlier this afternoon or today. We probably covered a few people.
Yeah. If you missed anything, head over to our chat this afternoon on the agenda, we've covered most of the bases. I'm going to put a link into the chat here for a video for you to watch after this, if you'd like to, because I'm trying to build up a new. So basically when I started Labour Social, I used my old Graham Hughes channel, and so we could start at 27,000 subscribers. I'm showing them under the bonnet here, Phil. But basically that meant that I could do stuff like live shows and put adverts on and things like that, which I couldn't do unless I had an X number of subscribers. So now I'm starting to move my videos off this channel, my travel videos, to a dedicated travel channel, which is called Graham Hughes Travels. And I made a video last week while I was at the what's it called, the Acropolis Museum, and it's about why they should give the Parthenon marbles back, or why we Brits should give them our Parthenon marbles back. So there's the link in the chat. I just threw it into the chat there. So if you'd like to watch that now, please subscribe to Graham Hughes Travels, because I need 1,000 subscribers before I can really do anything much with it. And I'll be putting more content and more videos from my, oh God, I'm old, 25 years of travel videos that I've got. They'll all be going up thick and fast, every country in the world. But over the next few weeks, I hope. Graham Speedo says, Sir Larry the Cat. Indeed.
I've just seen one thing before we finish that might be worth mentioning, though, just on Twitter. So you know the Elon Musk, block is going to be deleted as a feature except for DMs. Elon Musk, right? You know how on Twitter, if a load of people respond to something, that automatically generates a adding context thing?
Yeah.
It's done that to his tweet. It says, Elon Musk cannot do this. The feature to block someone on the site is required as a social media app to be allowed on the App Store and the Google Play Store.
Oh, I just saw that.
Mind you, that being said, if he just wants to destroy Twitter, he won't care about that, will he?
I've just put a link up so people can read that tweet there. Elon Musk cannot do this.
Unless he wants to destroy Twitter, to be fair, the context should have said, in which case, if he does, then he can.
Yeah. Okay, so let's wrap it up there. If you want to see Phil on Sunday, he'll be posting a video to Labour Social, which is called Labour Vision, and that's all about Labour policy. So if you want to watch that, that'll be 4:00 on Sunday. I will be back here on Monday at 9:30 for Morning Brew, and then on Monday evening, hopefully we should be doing the first episode of The Swear Jar with me and Supertansky. No, we're not allowed to swear. That's the gimmick. It's a gimmick. Unless you give us loads of super chats and give us words to say, and then we'll say whatever you want us to say. But thanks for watching. Thank you so much for the super chats, especially me and videos. I think they've gone to bed. But when you watch this in the morning, just me and videos, thank you so much for that wonderful, massive super chat you threw in there, and to everyone else who threw in a super chat, and everyone else who's been chatting away in the chat and keeping the conversation going. We'll see you very, very soon. And until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.